everyone. Thank you for joining English at Work in Asia's first live Q&A session with Dr. Jung Ha-Brookshire. We hope you find the session thought-provoking and useful in your next job search. Feel free to chime in anytime in our live stream discussion thread on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you don't have a Google account, then you can use the edX live session discussion thread. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can in the next hour. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a bit about Dr. Jung Ha-Brookshire and why I wanted her to lead this session today. Dr. Ha-Brookshire is currently a Fulbright Scholar here at PolyU and an up-and-rising associate professor in the Department of Textile and Apparel Management at the University of Missouri. I recently attended one of her talks here at the university and was instantly inspired after listening to her job-seeking story. I immediately thought, wow, I want our English at Work in Asia students to hear this. Her story started when she was bored at her work at Samsung Korea. To reignite her passion, she left Korea and went to New York City in search of another career. In New York City, she started off as a student again and searched for work at the same time. She spent 6 months to get her CV looking more American style, and after that, she had to try to reapply again and revise again, and eventually, after 9 months, she finally landed a job as a fax sender and receiver. Of course, this was just to get her foot in the door. After a short time, she quickly rose to become manager and later global sourcing manager. And now she wants to share her creative strategies with you. What is intuitive for her is, I think, valuable advice and insight for people like you and me. So I hope you'll find her talk interesting and thought-provoking. So now I think you want to hear more from her. Thank you so much for joining us today and making this live session possible. I'll not talk so much and I'll let them hear more from you.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for having me, Bea, and everyone else. And I hope I'll be able to help you throughout this session by sharing what I did. That's almost like 20 years ago, after I graduate university in Seoul, Korea. When I was a senior at the Seoul National University, I had an internship opportunity with Samsung. Samsung had a fashion department at that time and fashion merchandising program, and I was able to intern there for about 2 months, and then I realized that I wanted to experience something bigger and more, even though I loved that experience at Samsung and I love all the opportunity that the company has given me. I also wanted to know, just because I was in a fashion and textile apparel industry, I wanted to be at the center of the industry in the whole world. So I wanted to go to New York City, but I didn't know how to start and where to start and what to do with it. So something just sparkled, and I said, if I don't try it now, when am I ever going to try it? I'm just too young to settle at this point, and so I'm going to give myself a couple of years, and I'm going to just put myself into New York City and see what happens. If nothing happens, I can always come back and do a job at Samsung or any other places. So so it was 1996 in January. I arrived in New York City with $3,000 and 2 suitcases, and that's my story all the time. If somebody asks me, can you do it again today? I'm like, I have no idea if I would have that courage to do it, without knowing what's going to happen. But I also knew that whatever that is not going to happen is also okay. That means I was okay to fail as well, because I was just too young. So I went there, and when I was in New York, the first time I came to U.S. as a American student with the F1 visa, and so I signed up for a Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, because whatever I learned in Korea, I didn't know it in English. So even though I spoke English, I just had to translate all the content that I learned in my major into English before I looked for a job. So FIT had a very unique program. It's called Associate Degree Program. For those who already have bachelor's degree, they would have this 1-year associate degree that you don't have to take other gen ed program, you just take the major. So textiles and merchandising, buying, so whatever it was I learned but I relearned it in English. So I had a concept, but it was, to me, it was almost like a language program, to me, almost like that. So while I was doing that, I was also able to take advantage of all the resources that the FIT was giving us to students. For example, so-and-so company is looking for an intern, so-and-so company is looking for a first-time job, whatever it was. So I started studying what kind of opportunities are out there for graduates of FIT. And then I quickly found out that I needed a Vita resume, which I had no idea how to write a resume for, especially in Korea. It's all the form related. So like all you have to do is fill in the blank. Most of the resume is. But in America, suddenly they wanted me to create my own resume with my own experiences and characteristics, that it wasn't about there was no form. It was a blank A4, the 8 by 11 paper, and now I have to suddenly show who I am and what I do and what kind of personality, what kind of leadership I have. That was a very challenging thought to me. It was very difficult, but luckily that the university had some sort of a resume creating workshops with classes like this. So I started attending, and then I started collecting my experience that I wanted to showcase. And so I built my resume for the first time following the typical format. And then I submitted all my resume to wherever I thought that I would be qualified for, but I got no phone calls. And I said, what's going on? Why nobody's calling me? And then I realized someone else, so I talked to the workshop again, and what's wrong with my resume, and they were telling me that these are great experiences, but you're not translating your experience into something that the company is looking for. What's interesting about American job market is that they already tell you what the right answers are, meaning we are looking for this type of candidate. We are looking for a candidate who have this ability, that ability, and we are looking for this candidate who can do this type of work specifically. So now they give you an answer, but then it's my job to format my Vita, my resume, so that they could see the abilities and duties that they're looking for from my own resume. So it's not just the fact that, oh, I graduated with this degree at this university. That was enough for me to get a job in Korea. But in America, now you have to translate that what I learned here makes it possible for me to perform this duty for your company if you hire me tomorrow. Basic fundamental idea is that if you hire me tomorrow, I'm going to make your life easy by this way. And somehow you have to communicate that. And you do that by 2 pieces of papers, 1 cover letter, 1 resume. So the cover letter, you can say a lot more soft stuff. Like, for example, I have this leadership, I have that determination, whatever it is that they're looking for. But these are my example, these are the evidence that I do have a leadership. This is evidence that I do have a creative problem solving. So whatever it is, you're going to write it on the cover letter, and then the resume should back that up. Whatever you said on the cover letter, the resume should have all the relevant experience to back that up, the statement that you just made. So that translation process took a while. Because I didn't know how to translate to begin with. The reason is because I don't really know what what employers are really looking for. Therefore, I can't tell you, how I can help you, right? So that took a little bit more time for me to really learn. Okay, this company's doing this position is doing that department is doing that, and if I go there, I can help this person this way, I can help that person this way, I can perform my duty this way to make my overall team better. So for that process, it took a while. It had, I even had a little bit of a industry shadow experiences, so that means I went to a certain company and see what designers doing, what merchandisers doing. Okay, I can be right in the middle of it, and so forth. So I did that it took another 3 months or so to get that points ready. I went and talked to my professors a lot because of that, and I also tried to be friends with somebody who's also working in the industry as a part-time or something. So I did that for 3 months. So now my resume looked better. Um, but then, so I submitted again, still I'm not getting any phone call. Or if I get a phone call, what they were saying is, but you're a foreigner, so that means, well, I have to give you a visa, and that's going to cost me more money, and I don't even know I can give you a visa because in the United States, for you to work, you have to have a working permission visa, H-1B visa. That means basically the company is petitioning the visa for you and saying to the government and say, this is the only work, this job description, and this candidate is the only one who can perform it. And we did it in national search, and there's no another American who can do this work. So you have to prove it so I can get that visa. So even if they liked me, the first question was about the visa situation. Um, so I really had to show that why you have to hire me, not anybody else. That the fact that luckily I had some connection with textile and apparel suppliers in Korea, and I spoke Korean. So at that time, the Korean fabric was very hotly pursued, demanded, so that my company basically said that this person has this connection, and Korean suppliers are key to our profit. Therefore, please issue a visa for me, for her. So, but for me to convince that to the interviewer on the first day when we meet was really, really tough. So that had to go through another couple of months process. That why does it have to be me, not someone else? So throughout this process, so that whole process took about 9 months or so, but eventually I got a job. But my first job was sending fax and receiving faxes because I didn't want to be picky. I just wanted to get into the door because I believed in myself. Once I have a job, I knew I can do what they needed me to do. But for me to get that first job as a foreigner in New York City, I didn't care. Whatever they asked me to do, I would do it. But that small step ended up being the very first beginning of the whole next 20 years, 10 years of industry experience I had. So it was a quite interesting journey for the whole that 9 months, especially because I felt like I had to relearn everything about how to package myself, how to communicate myself, how do I showcase my weakness and strength, and how do I really tell them that I have the ability that you are looking for, and based on do all of that with just one piece of paper. So it's really, really interesting journey to find myself as well as my own niche in this whole world. But the meantime, once you got into it, but after that, they see your ability. You go up quick, and people are scouting you from another company. So that was easy. So the very first job was the toughest job I ever got. Although it was the lowest paying job and it was the least amount of skills job, but it was the toughest job to get. So hopefully I can help you out with that process throughout this session.
Yes, I'm sure you'll be able to answer a lot of the questions the students have. I collected the questions that the students had and also the common questions that we saw on the discussion forums. So now I'll go ahead and start the Q&A with some of the prepared questions that we have. The first question that we have is how do you figure out your qualities and values? For many students, I think it's the hardest thing to do. So how do you figure out what your qualities and what values you can bring to the company?
I think the most important, the best way to do it is by doing it. So, you can do that. You can find that out by reading books and studying. Sometimes that you hate doing math, but you also know you love doing math. Whatever that topic it is, get it first. But if you have that and you're majoring it, but then I would suggest that you take all type of internship experiences, use your relationship to go and visit one day what it's like to have a job in a company setting, in a small company or in a big company, you just have to see it. And then when you go and experience that, also, oh, I love that type of job. Oh, that person's job looks very fun. And then that person, oh, I never want to do that. So you will know that if you just sit in your office or your desk in your room, you say, where am I good at? You can never find that out. You have to go out and, just, this is my favorite subject, that's my favorite subject. Now, I tell actually one of my cousins, they say, oh, I'm very good at score, in math score. I said, I don't care what score you get. Do you enjoy doing it? That's more important than whether you get an A or B. So it's your heart has to beat to it, not the scores. So don't worry about the scores and grades, but then find out what kind of genre and the area you like, and then you go and experience. So internship is a good opportunity. If you have any friends or nephews or anybody who's working in a certain industry, go and observe it for a year, for a day or so, and see what kind of things I like doing it. So for me, I like talking. And to me, I like reading. So to me, I'm okay with in my office all day. So do you like it? Do you not like it? You need to experience it.
We just had a question that came up from one of our participants.
Mm-hmm.
They said, so you made your CV for American.
Uh-huh.
What would an East Asian CV look like? Or
I
how is
mean,
that different?
Actually, that's a good question. I don't know. I haven't applied for any job in Asia, so I can't tell you. But when I was applying for a job 20 years ago in Korea, it was all the format. Like each company, they have their own form. So I can't even my own CV. I have to enter it every time I apply for a company. But in the U.S., I have a CV, and then I show it to different company. So it's a little different. But even that I visited in a couple of other countries, it still seems like compared to American situation, it's still like each company dictates what a CV looks like. Then I myself dictate what my CV looks like. So that's what I think. So you'll have to know specifically if you work for a company A, then you need to go find out what kind of CV, what kind of vita, what kind of form, what kind of question that they are specifically asking each company. That's my suggestion.
Do you think it would be odd if they receive phone calls from candidates asking about how should I format my CV?
No, you shouldn't do that. I mean, you may have to say that I'm a student, I like to get myself better, um, or you can do that, or you can ask somebody who's already working for the company, how did you get a job? What kind of things are they looking for? Yeah, it's a little different in I would say in Asia, but if you are in American company or European company that's on Hong Kong, they may still see the CV that it's like looks like American version. So I'm just saying if it's a traditionally like Korean company and they have their own culture, while the the American company that is in Hong Kong, they may still have American culture influenced. So you really have to know your target audience. Who's going to see my CV? And then I have to make my CV so that their heart will be beating because they saw. So these people look at the CV in this way. These people look at the CV in that way. So you need to play as well in that sense.
I think people emailing CV and cover letter these days is
Yes.
okay? Or would you be happier as receive something hard copy? Would it be the same if you received it via email?
Yeah, I think so. And nowadays it's gotten a little different. So you're in an actual job fair, like where a lot of employees are coming and yours is at the part of the candidates. And then there is 1,000 more people in there and you're the only one of the 100 people that people talk to that time, then the hard copy is very important. Especially the hard copy has a different texture, the different thickness, color, so that could be memorable to that person That would be great. So they may not remember your name, but they may remember your story. Story is the most important thing to have than just your, oh, I'm a so-and-so graduate. Everybody else is a so-and-so graduate. I don't remember you. But if you have a unique story, just like, me, I always talk about that $3,000 in 2 suitcases. That gives a specific story. Little Asian women arrives in New York City in the middle of the night with $2,000 in 2 suitcases. Somehow that details make me remember, oh, I'm an HR person. I went to a cafe. I talked to 100 people. But then there is a one little Asian told me that there is a $3,000 2 suitcases make its memorable story. So the memorable story and the different resume paper, and that would be interesting. But if you are, nowadays everybody's traveling everywhere, so that if you're not in a job market and somehow you have a chance to work with that person or be able to apply, then email is fine. But when you email them, it's your job to make that file to be easy to read by the receivers. And if I have to have 2 more clicks, I'm annoyed. I don't want to do it again. So, and you created in Mac, and I have, Microsoft and whatever, so the file doesn't work, the file didn't work, that's your fault. So to me, so you create your CV however you want it and most beautiful and most effective, then you PDF it with cover letter and resume together, so that if I just open one file, there's 2 of them that I want right there. I don't have to click 2 files. And another most important thing, when you save the file, don't save the file latest Vita version 1. It may be the latest Vita version 1 for you, but it may be the latest Vita version 1 for this employers, like 100 of them. So the easiest way, that means if I got a Vita from you, I want to download it, I want to save it without even typing. That means I have my Jung Ha-Brookshire, my name, Vita, right there, so that I can just save it, then they can find, they don't have to do extra. So that's what I would recommend.
It's practical.
Yes.
Why don't we think of that,
Yep.
actually?
It says PDF it and both files together and save it with your name so that they don't have to retype it.
Make life simple for the person receiving your CV.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to the second question we had, a pre-prepared second question. Question number 2. Irina from Russia expressed, and Nan from Vietnam agrees. Creativity and leadership and ambition are stress in society today, but what if you just want a stable job and just normal staff? So, quote Irina, I'm happy with being a first sidekick. Do you think everyone needs to show leadership and ambition?
Okay, leadership doesn't mean that you have to lead 1,000 people, 10,000 people, million people. Leadership may mean that you may have to lead a person right next to you. Okay? Creativity doesn't mean that you have to create the most beautiful sculpture in the whole city. That doesn't mean that. Creative problem solving skill set, maybe today, how can I PDF file together so I can make my Vita, make the receiver's life easy by getting my Vita in one file. Creativity requires everything that we do every day. Leadership is also necessary for everything that we do every day. So if you don't have a leadership and creativity, you're never going to be able to keep your job. The only way to keep your job in this very, very competitive world, and if it's not that competitive today, the only competitive more tomorrow. Just more people are born every day, and there are more people want the job that you have. So if you don't even have that leadership to lead a person right next to you, can't even solve the problem we face every day creatively, then I don't think the company will value your time and effort, and I don't company will say this person is worthy of, let's say, $6,000 a year. Whatever that money is a cost to the company, and they do the calculation in their head and say, this person doesn't over $60,000 worth of work. Why should I extend the job? So yes, so I would say I don't think I do believe that everybody has certain leadership and creativity. It's the scales are different, and the way you lead is different, and the way you solve problems are different. So not everybody has to be like Nelson Mandela, but you may be the everyday hero, and you have to showcase that, and you have to tell them that. Company also, they don't want everybody to be a Nelson Mandela. In that case, the company don't go anywhere. Everybody, can't on anything. But they may need that heavy-duty leader. They also need everyday leaders. So if you are good at that, and because you are good at making other people feel good and lead better, so that both of us are doing better job than yesterday, then you are a leader, and then you have to communicate that with your employer so you can keep your job. Did it answer you?
I don't know, Irina, did it answer your question from Russia? I guess we'll find out in the discussion forums later.
Sure.
Okay, now I'll move on to question number 3, and it seems to be a question that students are currently asking at this moment as well. Question number 3 is from Ann Moore from Palestine, as well as a few that are joining us now during the live session. They're asking about a modern-looking CV versus a traditional one. So the modern-looking CV nowadays may include a picture,
Sure.
may have some color, may have graphs and
Yeah.
charts and
Yeah.
things that come up on the
Yes.
bottom. It just looks fresh and
Yes.
cool. So what do you think a modern-looking CV is important? Do you prefer looking at a modern CV or a traditional CV? And then the final question is, or maybe these two questions first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to me, that depends. I know I hate the answer, but it really depends on what kind of job you're looking for. If you're looking for a creative job, you really have to, let's say, visual creative job. Like say if you're going to want to be a graphic designer, of course you have to show your graphic design ability on your CV. If you looking for a business analyst, course, if you had some sort of a pie chart or histogram to show what kind of ability or experience you had, creatively using your experience in the format, the way that your viewer will appreciate is important. But if you're, I'm not saying accounting is boring, but it's a very legal job, then your CV has to look like a legal document. So it really depends on your audience. So the way I say, back home, textile apparel management in my department, some of my students want to go into blogging and social network marketing. So then I say, tell me why you can be a good blogger. Your resume, your language is so boring, and I don't know how you can be a good blogger. Your resume and cover letter is so boring. So if you want to be a blogger, your cover letter and resume have to be a bloggy or attention grabbing for people, and do that. If you want to be someone wants to be a designer, and we do. I'm not saying your resume has to be all different colors and so busy. I'm not saying that, but it's like sophisticated. For example, I was telling this in one of my classes the other day that the brand Kate Spade. It's an American brand. It's a young women's professional dress, and their brand identity is that young, crisp, but yet sophisticated youth. That's what they're selling. And if you want to apply for a job in that kind of brand, and then you just have nothing but black and white with even your resume, so no color, nothing crisp and nothing youth, you're just not my family. So yes, I wouldn't say if you are applying for a modern companies, then modern looking CVs. If you're applying for non-modern society companies, then you may have to follow the tradition.
So when you're going through
Yes,
CVs,
yes.
what usually attracts your attention first and second?
To me, is action. It's the evidence. Everybody will tell you that I've been a good student. I'm going to be the hardest working person, the most, what everybody will say I'm the best. who's going to say I'm terrible at this, right? So all I say, by the time you see hundreds and hundreds of CV, the only thing I see is actual evidence. If you are really a hardworking person or not. How do I know that by resume? I can tell. If somebody worked over 20 hours a week, right, and had 3.8 GPA out of 4.0, and got this experience and that experience in her community, and I did this, I did that. Yes, this person is hardworking. I already know that this person is good at time management. I already know that this resume, there's not even one little mistake. That means this person is detail oriented. But if you say on your cover letter that I'm the hardest working person and multitasking and everything, and your resume is a half empty, it's like, I don't know, half empty, and there's some mistake here and there, obviously not detail oriented, and you didn't work much, also you didn't have a good GPA, but also you didn't really do much in community service, then like, okay, you're not really a hardworking person, even though you said you're a hardworking person. So we can tell. The evidence is what I want to see. So let's say, for example, if you received a scholarship, you now have to explain it. You don't just say, I received scholarship, whatever XX scholarship. Don't say, I received XX, recipient of XX scholarship given to top 2% of the entire 10,000 students. Because from over there, I don't know how big of this school is. So if this school might have been a 500 people school, and then out of that, I might have been the top 5%, or the school might have been a 35,000 students, and then I'm top 2%. So it's different thing. I received a scholarship, or I'm a winner of whatever competition. Is that a national competition? Is that an international competition? Or is that just a class competition? I don't know. So you now have to contextualize your accomplishment with actual evidence, and then by providing context of the competition that you are going through. So for example, let's say I was selected to be an intern by a major company in Hong Kong, let's say. Then you have to explain that company, because many people may not know it. Second largest whatever investing company, and usually less than 2% of the, usually they have over 10,000 application, only 10 people got accepted. That means you were one of the 1%, So things like that, you have to explain it.
Okay. A follow-up question from Philip. He's said he's worked as a freelancer his whole life. How is he going to persuade a potential employer that he's going to be loyal to the company when he's applying? So he's applying as a freelancer.
Interesting question. I think that many people's been freelancing because of the recent economic downturn and economic situation. So if your goal is to show your loyalty to a company, then first of all, job jumper and freelance are different. Job hoppers are hopping every half 2 years to get to a better packaged job, right? Job hoppers you can easily see on the resume. Sometimes a hopping job too much is not good, but freelance is a little different because I didn't hop, but I was very creative and entrepreneurial in a turn economic situation. So you did what you had to do to keep up, but now somehow in your cover letter I would say, I've been freelancing whole career, but although I loved all this, but I also realized that the freelancing cannot achieve certain goals, and if I that requires a permanent job situation. So if I get hired as a full-timer, then I could then learn this, and I can then deliver this to your company, so it'll be a win-win situation, something like that. You may have to say that. So don't say your experience as a freelancer as a negative way. You say that it was a wonderful experience, but it lacked whatever it is that you want to get from this full-time company. So that this will be an ideal situation where I can deliver these skill sets, my skill set by doing all kinds of freelance work to your company to help this way, but in return, I be able to, fill the gap that you couldn't get in your career as a freelancer. So it's got to be a mutual exchange, not just the company gets everything out of you, you don't get anything out of company at all. So you always have to make sure that what kind of benefit you can deliver to the company from you that, so you don't have to apologize for your freelance career, but you package it in a positive way. This is actually good for you. In the meantime, it's good. Your job is good for me because I couldn't get certain things by doing that. I hope that was good answer.
Answers your question, Philip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move on to question 4. This is from Zaina, and I think maybe fresh grads or professionals that are into professional development. So when explaining work experience or courses taken, she says she tends to just list it, but she wants to know more what she should be aiming for if she's listing it. We also had a student who is in education and has taken courses, but not sure how to list webinars and that. So I wonder if someone is listing it in their CV, what would you be looking for?
It's all about packaging, okay? So to me, this is what I say. Let's say one of my students were wanting to apply for a global sourcing job, and she thought that the class that she took with me, because was very important. She thought that would be a competitive advantage over other students who graduated with a similar degree, but they didn't graduate from University of Missouri, and they didn't learn it from me, who had over 8 years of sourcing experience. So she wanted to focus that. So, but she didn't want to just write, I took this class. That sounds like a little immature, right? So I said it. We had a after education and degree section, we created a separate section. It's called notable courses or experience. Okay, and then she highlighted global sourcing. She listed global sourcing, and then she explained. And then she said, I learned from an 80-year experience professional, including, let's say, credit, trade tariff schedules, whatever those industry jargons, right, that sourcing people are using, LDP, pricing strategy, whatever it is, that those industry jargon, she put it in there. So what it means is that I know these industry jargon that you use every day. I know that, even though I'm just a graduate, because I learned from professional. So my educational experience is different from another student who's coming from another school who never took this class. So you do that with accounting class. I mean, everybody takes accounting, right? So there's no because Mizzou accounting is better than Hong Kong Poly. It's not like that. But that kind of specific thing, I would list that. And our students can also take online classes like this, so that or even Excel training, or any Microsoft training, or website design training, whatever those, in addition to your degree seeking classes, right? So then I would suggest my students to have completed, let's say, 16-hour Excel workshop. Don't just say list workshop, Excel workshop. We have no idea, but if you completed 16-hour Excel workshop, including pivot table or whatever, what if analysis, if you add that right there, so then, because those are the terms that they're using every day as a company employer's perspective, right? Ooh, the person knew it, right? So completed 20-hour, you don't even have to have a certificate or anything. I'm just saying, completed 16-hour Dreamweaver workshop, including, let's say, whatever those sophisticated terms are, which I have no idea about. Things like that. So here you would say, if you're taking this type of class, and I would say, I completed total 16 hours of MOOC, about specific job-seeking professionalism, including some so that these people will know it in every language and show it looks different.
Okay.
Okay?
Good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move on to the next question. And this question is from Tahir Q. And I'm sure many students in this position, or maybe in the future you might be in this position. Tahir said, I keep sending out applications and hear nothing, or I keep getting rejected. So what am I doing wrong? Or what should I be doing next? How should I be handling the situation?
So that's what my students ask all the time too. Is that first of all, the purpose of cover letter is to make yourself interesting enough so I can look at your resume. If I'm not impressed with your cover letter, I'm not even looking at your resume, okay? The purpose of resume is then, oh, your resume is interesting enough that I want to call. So I'm going to pick up phone. The purpose of phone call is that you're impressive. I now have to see you. So the purpose of interview is that, wow, you're so impressive. I now have to hire you. So we're talking about 5 different steps. So Tahir said, I keep sending out, but hear nothing means your cover letter is not talking to the right person. Basically, you may be barking. So there's 2 reasons why somebody's calling you cover letter, I say. Number 1, maybe you're barking at a wrong tree. Okay? That means the people that you're sending to are not pleased with your cover letter. Number 2, maybe the content is right, but your cover letter is not impressive enough. So either you have a bad cover letter or you have an excellent cover letter, but you are talking to the wrong group of people. And these group of people are not appreciating what you're saying. So you now have to change. I was telling you that the job description already tells you what they're looking for. Then you have to tell them that I have what you're looking for. So your cover letter has to say that. But when you say that, if you just say, oh, I'm creating leadership, if you just say that, because everybody else, million others say the same thing. So now then you have to have your story, that unique story and the evidence that you really do have leadership and that you really do have a creativity. That you need to have that. So look at your cover letter and see if the quality of a cover letter is overall good or not. If you think it's good, then maybe what you're saying is not really necessary or appreciated company that you're applying for. So maybe, I don't know what sector you are in. Let's say if your company is analytic and your resume doesn't show analytical skill, then your cover letter, then you're wrong. They're not going to go to the next level. If your company wants somebody who's, creative and your cover letter is not creative, it's not going to work. So that's the first step.
All right. We have a follow-up question from Victor. He's from Hong Kong. He wants to know, in this day and age, how important is a cover letter? I mean, if someone just submitted their CV, is that as effective? Or if someone submits a CV and cover letter, that's effective?
At least in the United States that I'm dealing with, sometimes it's more important than CV because they do see written communication ability. Okay? The written communication is something that American companies talk about every day. And if you don't even know how to write a cover letter, which may be the most important document in your whole life, then they don't have a really trust in you. I'm talking about, potentially good job. If you're just going to come in and do the manual $7 at an hour job and so you go home, that's not important. The cover letter is not important. But I'm talking about college graduates who company wants to hire so they can develop you to be the leader in one day, and you don't even know how to write a cover letter. If it's all fakes, they really want to see overall elegance of your writing and overall writing style and leadership and you as a person through the cover letter. And push my students so much about to have a unique story. And I'm like, I don't have a unique story. Yes, everybody has a story. You just don't know how to say it. But one thing is about sometimes they tend to over exaggerate their experiences. So like I don't want to say they lie, but they over exaggerate it, and that's also where the companies can see the integrity as well. And so when they check the references and they really measure and check, this person said ABC, is it really true? You know, how much is it true or not? They also see the integrity of it. So a lot of things we can see from the cover letter than resume. It is absolutely important, at least in the world that I'm going into.
Okay. I'm now going to move on to the question. This question is from one of our star students in the course, Nedja. She's from Brazil.
Okay.
She's in HR. So I don't know if you can answer this question, but she asked, what are the biggest challenges for an HR professional, or maybe any professional working in a foreign country?
I never done an HR work, so I can't tell you, but had an opportunity with talk with an HR manager of the global company, fashion company, and she said the hardest thing was about understanding different HR laws in different countries. So certain things are allowed in America is not allowed in Brazil, and certain things allowed, like even hiring and firing. Like for example, having a photo of yourself on a resume is illegal in America. We can't do that. We can't hire somebody based on family background and the way you look or anything like that. While in Korea, like that, as far as I know, you have to put a picture of you. So sometimes as a grad student advisor, we even get some graduate school application with the pictures on it. I feel very uncomfortable. Things like that. But for them, this is very, of course you have to do it. The age. We don't we're supposed to ask age in the United States. But in other countries, ages are very important. So things like that. So that's what I heard from that major HR manager in a global fashion company, that the hardest thing is to know how to hire, how to fire people in different cultures. So you may have to study a lot about that.
Okay. Let's go on to another question. This is from Niraj from India. He's also a senior HR manager. And I thought this question was really interesting because it was kind of a bit about your background and what was happening in Korea. So he currently works in an organization that it's really rigid and discourages new concepts. But he still tries to be creative and innovative. And he just wonders how you could be so creative in such an environment. And he wants to know a bit about how your brain works behind the scenes.
So, you know, who did I hear this from? I don't remember who I heard this from. So they said, so a lot of people talking about think outside of the box, think outside of the box, right? But then somebody told me, you know, you can't really do anything by thinking outside of the box. Meaning, if you want to be the best piano player in the whole world, you still have to work within do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. You only have 8 tones that you have to work with. If you want to be the best violin player, you still have to work within those 5 strings. So knowing the situation, like what is the maximum resources I can have, which is 5 strings of violin or pianos, you know, whatever, however many black and white, you know, tones. And if you want to be the genius, the mathematician, you still have to know what pluses and minuses. So knowing the confinement, the situation is the first job for you, first condition for anyone to be creative and innovative. That's what I heard. So nobody can actually think outside of the box. That's what, you know, this person's perspective was. So the thing is, you have to know what box you're in, and then you try to make that box different. So to me, you know, whenever I face a big challenge, I start to think, what are the conditions? Which one can I push, which one I cannot push? Which one can bend, which one cannot be bent? So then what are the, you know, what can I do at this point of time? The world is not changing. World doesn't change overnight. It changes over the long period of time. And but my one action today, whatever action I had today, will have a ripple effect tomorrow. Will have another ripple effect in today after tomorrow. So maybe 10 years later, I may be able to do that. So you may want to revolutionize your company, but that may also not happen. So then in the constraint, what can I do today? So I believe, I used to be like you, revolutionary. I want to change the world tomorrow, so I want to just change completely and do completely different. No, and then I realized that we also have 2,000 years of history of human being, and I am the product of the 2,000 years of history. So then what can I do in this world is that, by changing one person at a time, by changing one behavior at a time, and then hopefully the accumulation of it will make a huge difference in 10 years later. So the patience, knowing my constraints, and making effort, even if it's small every day, would be the best way to do it. I hope that's answer to you.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have one question from Pramila. She asks, how do you explain gaps in employment history? What's the best way to go about explaining or
Gaps in
making
employment history.
more positive?
Oh, that depends on how long of a gap. I mean, was it like a 6 years of gap, or was it a 6 months of gap? I don't know, but at
2
least
years,
2 years.
she said.
Okay, I mean that's very common. I think at least in the United States, especially if you're a woman, family issues, and in the United States, family, nobody can say anything about family issues. The family is the most important thing. That's why we're working all of that. And if something happened in my family, so I had to take my parents, my mother was sick or had a baby and so forth, or I had to support my husband who's going through this or something like that, is a no problem whatsoever. As long as you have an ability to perform the duty and task that they're looking for, you have no problem. So, I don't think instantly we, at least in the States, when we see somebody's gap in the employment history, we don't see it as, oh, that person didn't have a job for 2 years because she couldn't find a job. We don't see it that way. We always see it as something must have something to do with family. That's how we see it. But in the Hong Kong, I'm not sure how they say it. I guess you have to see it in your cultural aspects. But the thing is, like I said to another, the person who asked about freelancing job, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be, let's not apologize for our past. Because of that 2 years of job gap, whatever that reason, maybe I am stronger because of that, whatever that reason was. So let's not apologize for the job, and let's not think that would be a bad. If you think that's a bad thing, it's on your page, it's on your writing, it's on your face. But if you think that was a great experience not to have a job because I learned so much more, if you really believe that, then it shows when you are talking, it shows when you are writing about that time frame. So don't apologize for it. Don't think of it as a bad thing. It was another learning experience. We live and we learn. So maybe those 2 years not working, I learned so much more. Show that.
Okay. Hope that was a good answer to you.
Yeah.
A quick question from Jeremy. Is including your cover letter right in the body of the email okay? Or would it be better to introduce the cover letter and CV in the email, but then load it?
Oh, so cover letter as a the email body.
Yeah.
Even if you have an email body, still the attachment has to have a cover resume together. Those two are side by side. You can't lose it. You can't have one without another. So if you want to put it in the copy, that context in the email, I think it's okay. But when somebody print out the attachment, I should have both. And don't forget, every job that you're applying, you have to have a different cover letter.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. David in France asks, how can we convince the recruiter of our change of career path if we do not have experience in that field?
Oh, nothing to do with that. What they're really looking for is a soft skill, because everybody know how to teach it. So a lot of companies have a different software, different things or whatever. But if you know how to calculate 1 plus 1, right? Whatever system you're using, I can teach you. But do you know how to calculate 1 plus 1? That's the most important thing. So, so what's 1 plus? So like leadership, attention to detail, multitasking, teamwork, collaboration, communication, all of that affects help. The actual work, technical stuff, is easy to learn, but all the soft skill is extremely difficult to train. So they rather want to hire a person who has all the soft skills than person who has all these technical skills with zero creativity, zero leadership, zero collaboration, zero teamwork. So it's your job to translate that. For example, I was in the photography industry, and now I want to go into, let's say, legal office. Okay, it's a completely different world, right? But you can still, but the legal industry will say what they're looking for. They may say, we want excellent written communication skill. Maybe they may say excellent oral communication skill. That's what they're looking for. Then from the photography industry, I'm sure you had an example of having amazing written communication skill, even in your photography industry. So you can translate that, because I did it in this industry, and this is the evidence of me having a good communication skill. And so this can be translated into the legal industry. You can do that. It's your job to make it transferable. Not the specifically, I use this machine, I use that machine. No, those technical skills, you don't have to say that, but it's really the soft transfer, that they call it transferable skills, that you have to now explain it to the lawyers as to how my experience as a photographer can help your job better.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have time for a few more questions.
Oof.
One time, beating time
Yeah.
here. Philip, I think he's from, I forgot where Philip was. Philip is asking whether it's smart to point out existing problems as a way to, give edge. So maybe Philip notices there's a problem with the company, and
No, you never badmouth anybody. The world sounds big, but it's so small. So don't ever burn your bridges. So when you quit, when you're in the job market, said, oh, why do you want to leave that company, right? Most people say, just say, I just want to be, more challenged. I just want to do something different. Or I learned so much from that company. I love that company. I mean, I loved working. I learned so much. But it's time for me, my career, to get new challenge. Or so it's make it all yours. Don't ever say bad things about that company. That company is all, I don't want to work for them. Don't do that. That's just a way of burning the bridges, and you never know if you're in the same industry at some point, especially if you go up high, that person's VP become your VP one day, because industry looks big but still small, and especially as you go up high. And so if you want to have a long career, you don't want to do that.
Okay, but what if you're maybe during interview, and you have some solutions for this new employer? So kind of a critique, but at the same time you're trying to show your creativity
For your company,
for the
this
future,
new company,
for the future company. Like, you have a solution for them. Do you think it would be okay to offer that solution, or would it be considered criticism? And Philip is from Serbia, by the way.
I would have to think about the culture of that company. Okay, if it's like a very like a very think outside of the box kind of company, be okay. But if it's like traditionally established company, they may say, who are you to say that to me? And also that has a lot to do with what level you're applying for. If you're applying for the lower level job, it may not be. But if you're coming in as a vice president of this new, let's say for example, you're getting a job as a new product development specialist in Volkswagen right now. I mean, everybody knows the problem with the Volkswagen right now, right? And then you come in and say, hey, here's my solution. You have to have it. But you're looking for like maybe entry level, maybe 5 years of career job, and you're talking to many years senior and saying, you know, you better change your company. This may be a little, even if you have it, if the opportunity is given, if that question was asked to you, then you should, but I wouldn't volunteer for it. But I'm not saying I'm right. I mean, it's context is missing, so I can't tell you what would be the right answer, but it has to, a lot to do with what situation you're in, I think.
We have one last question.
Hey.
I think it's an interesting one. Jeremy, who's a lecturer working in Asia, has an MBA and is currently working at a university as a business lecturer.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to maybe get a higher degree, but at the same time he's worried about the burden of a student loan.
Mm-hmm.
So he was wondering if you have any advice for someone like him, because you also advisor to MA and PhD students.
Yes. I'm really, really...
How is it?
So I have an MBA too, and then I worked, and then in my case I quit, and I became a PhD student for 3 years. I put my 100% to my PhD. Yes, I didn't make money during that 3 years, but I also went to a school where they gave me a full scholarship. So it cost me a little bit of money for me to live, but I didn't make money during that period of time. So that's the solution that I chose in my case. I would say at the end of the day, the higher degree that you want to get, I assume will be a PhD because you have an MBA degree. If that's the case, my suggestion to you is to find a way to become a full-time PhD student, because this is the tool that will give you your rest of the life career. If you do not get PhD education well, then even if you become a professor, you cannot keep a professor job. You may not get tenure because you don't have a research ability. So even if you become a professor, you may not be the best professor you can be. So we're talking about years of sacrifice to get my next 30, 40 year career settled. So I want to do both, and the student loan. No, in my case, I look for a PhD, so I may not be able to go to the ideal university that I wanted to go because of the money situation. So I applied everywhere. I selected a school that will give me full-time scholarship with the most amount of money. So for me to get there, I had to prepare my package very well. So I studied hard and got all my application ready. So they gave me, so it was the least expensive option of high degree. So if it's going to be another master's degree, a little different, you know, I don't even know if you would need another master's degree. But if it's a PhD, I'm telling you, a PhD is a terminal degree. There's nothing else. You can't get, even if you want to get a second PhD, nobody gives you. This is done. Once you have a PhD, it's done. And I'd rather put my 100% into PhD education and get myself the best candidate for my next chapter of the career. So save money, find a school that will give you a scholarship, and then go, dedicate, get the best tool out there, and then start a new career.
Okay, so I can ask one more question. Last question is from another active student in the course. We were giving advice about searching the person who's going to interview.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you don't know who you're submitting the application to. Is it the HR manager or is it the actual manager? So should she call to ask the company, like, who am I submitting? Do you know who to research and know who to write to? And what should you find out about them if you do?
Are you talking about interview or job application?
Job application.
Job application is you got to submit to the person who's responsible to receive the job application.
Sometimes it goes to HR.
So mostly, sometimes it goes. So depends. If the company's big, you'll have an HR. If companies are small, they don't have an HR. Somebody, whoever it is. So almost all announcement has as to location, as to submit. So you should have that. But when you go into an interview, then yes, the companies fill out. But the thing is, I even tell my students, if you know that company's philosophy is not, if you and company don't have a share value, don't bother to apply. Even if you get a job, you won't be happy. So you're quickly going to look for another job. So, but if it's a large enough company, then they have a structure then you have to go through the channel of HR. And once HR screens you out, then they will forward to the individual department. And if individual department likes you, then they will call you for a phone call or anything like that. So I would follow that instruction.
Be odd if she called and say, hey, who's the actual manager in the department? Because it just says to send it to HR. Should she call and ask for who's the HR manager so she would address it specifically to that HR manager? If it's following HR first? Would that be
so
fine?
it's interesting. So I have several close contacts whose job is HR. And they say, you know, for me, for the candidate, this is one HR. But this person gets thousands of resumes every day. So sometimes, no, but then they said, oh, the crying baby is going to get the crumb first. Meaning, the more you can ask, the more ask, they will remember your name. You know, sometimes in the beginning, they feel like, oh, I'm so busy, why this email me all the time? But then they will eventually see it as positive, like this is persistent, this one's really interested, this person is committed to my company, so I better follow up. So in terms of that, it may be, but the reason why in the beginning my answer was slightly confusing was because, is it okay to contact HR people to ask about job-related stuff? Yes. But is it okay for me to call HR to find out who's going to be the interviewer of me? No, because we didn't decide it yet that you're going to be interviewed. So don't take to the next level yet. Once you have an interview offer, then you can say, who am I going to interview? What kind of person, what department, what level? Then you have mostly they give you answer, but if they don't give you, you have a right to answer. But I haven't even screened you yet. I don't even know if you're a good candidate yet, right? But then you're already asking next level question. That bothers me. I mean, that bothers them. You know what I'm saying? So ask the right question at the right level, one step at a time. Because just because I called you doesn't mean I'm going to hire you. Don't ask how much salary you're going to give me at that point, you know, because you're not selected yet. Yeah. So everything, so if it's HR, you know what question to ask to candidates at every level. So just stay within that level. That's my recommendation.
I hope that answered your question, Nan. Okay, so is past the time and end of the session. So unanswered questions, we do apologize, but we can go ahead and go back to the discussion forums, and the English at Work in Asia team will eventually get to address them. So I'll go ahead and Miss Dr. Ha-Brookshire, enjoy the evening here in Hong Kong, considering she's not here for such a long time. Thank you so much for your precious time today, Dr. Ha-Brookshire.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully this was helpful, and if you have any questions more, just feel free to call me or email me, and it really depends on the context, so we'll have to know more. Okay?
All right. So good evening from Hong Kong, and good evening English at Work in Asia team. Remember to register for part 2, and we'll see you on the discussion forums.
Thank you.
Bye.